boys and girls. Today I'm going to talk to you about some great books. Patricia Polacco is a children's writer, and she writes books about kids just like you. Have you ever gone camping with your family or celebrated your birthday? How about family reunions? And most of all, she writes really great books about kids who go to school. Well, everybody goes to school. She talks about bullies and what to do about it. She also talks about how you feel if you're not feeling like the smartest kid, and maybe how to overcome some of those things. So listen to the books I have to talk about, because I think you'll like them as much as I do.
Chicken Sunday. Stuart and Winston were my neighbors. They were my brothers by solemn ceremony that we had performed in their backyard one summer. They weren't the same religion as I was. They were Baptists, and their grandma, Eula May Walker, was my grandma now. My babushka had died 2 summers before. Sometimes my mother let me go to church on Sunday with them. How we loved to hear Miss Eula sing. She had a voice like slow thunder and sweet rain. We'd walk to church and back. She'd take my hand as we crossed College Avenue. Even though we'd been churching it up like decent folks ought to, she'd say, "I don't want you to step in front of one of those cars too fast. You'll be as flat as a hen tongue." She'd squeeze my hand. When we passed by Mr. Kodinsky's hat shop, Miss Eula would always stop and look in the window at the one. My mom and dad were divorced. My brother Rich and I lived with my mother, except that we spent every summer with Dad and Grandma, my dad's mother. Cousin Billy lived nearby. Dad was a traveling salesman. It was my job to help make sure his socks matched. He was colorblind, you see. Her father pretended to forget her birthday. Although she was disappointed, she didn't say anything. Then the family decided to go on a camping trip for the night. "But Dad," I said, "everyone knows that Clay Pit is haunted." "I'm with you, Dad," my brother said. "Me too," added Billy. Not only had my birthday been completely forgotten, now we had to go to one of the scariest places on earth. And at night. Tonight, we're going to get the very first photograph ever taken of the monster at Clay Pit Bottoms. During their camping trip, they did all the usual things that people do while they're camping. Had a fire, told ghost stories, and then they thought they saw the monster, and the kids got so scared they ran all the way home. As it turns out, her birthday wasn't really forgotten. So when she got home, she had presents and cake. And her dad said maybe they'd have to try to get that picture again next year.
When lightning comes in a jar. Today was finally the day of the family reunion. They were so excited to see all of their cousins, they could hardly wait. They played baseball, swang on the swings, and told secrets that they had kept for a whole year. Their grandma told them that later they would catch lightning in a jar. What could that mean, she wondered. It would have made everyone crazy if they weren't having so much fun. They ate watermelon and told fun stories. But what about the lightning in the jar? Can't wait to find out? Read When Lightning Comes in a Jar.
Mr. Lincoln was the coolest principal in the whole world, or so his students thought. He had the coolest clothes, he had the coolest smile, and he did the coolest things. He had tea parties with Mrs. West's kindergarten every spring. He took Mr. Blythe's 6th graders on nature walks in the fall. Everyone thought he was the coolest. Everyone, that is, except Eugene. Mean Eugene is what everybody called him. Mean Gene sassed the teachers and beat up on most of the other kids on the playground. He was no student at all. He drove Mrs. Dunkel crazy in English. Ms. Chu wanted him to drop from art. He was a bully. He always seemed angry, picking on the kids and calling them names. Mr. Lincoln didn't think he was bad, only troubled. He searched for a way to get through to Eugene. Mr. Lincoln noticed that Eugene was interested in birds and asked for his help with the school's atrium. The two worked together and created a wonderful atrium full of many different types of birds. Eugene seemed very happy and was no longer getting into trouble at school. That changed a short time later when Eugene used some racial slurs towards other students. Mr. Lincoln talked to him. He said, "Just like the birds in our atrium were all different, people are all different." Something exciting is about to happen in the atrium, but I think I'll let you find that out when you read Mr. Lincoln's Way.
It was the day of the annual Halloween picnic at Grange Hall in Mudstock Meadow. William and his friends stopped a moment just on the edge of the marsh known as Quicksand Bottoms. Most who lived here feared this place. Legend had it that the eerie lights seen coming out of the swamp at night were the ghost of Titus Dinworthy, an old miner who disappeared there about 100 years ago. It's just swamp gas," William said with authority. "You," Hester Wooden said, with a leer sticking out her tongue. Everyone laughed, and William's face turned as red as a Union City farm fresh tomato. What could be in the swamp? Could it be swamp gas, or could it be a swamp monster? Follow the kids to the Halloween picnic, where they carve pumpkins and play games until an eerie light comes out at night in Quicksand Bottom. What will happen? You'll have to check out Picnic at Mudstock Meadow to find out.
The grandpa held the jar of honey so that all the family could see. Then he dipped a ladle into it and drizzled honey over the cover of a small book. The little girl had just turned 5. "Stand up, little one," he cooed. "I did this for your mother, your uncles, your older brother, and now you." Then he handed the book to her. "Taste." She dipped her fingers into the honey and put it into her mouth. "What is that taste?" the grandma asked. The little girl answered, "Sweet." Then all of the family said in a single voice, "Yes, and so is knowledge. But knowledge is like the bee that made that sweet honey. You have to chase it through the pages of a book." The little girl knew that the promise to read was at last hers. Soon she was going to learn to read. But when she went to kindergarten, she didn't learn to read. She still loved school because she could draw, and the other kids loved to watch her. In 1st grade, she still didn't learn to read, and she started to feel different. She thought she was dumb. School got harder and harder. Reading was just plain torture. When she moved to a new school in 3rd grade, things got worse. Her classmates called her names and teased her. Have you ever felt different? Or made fun of someone for being different? Things changed for Tricia in 5th grade. Her teacher, Mr. Falker, helped her. He made her feel brave and smart and helped her learn to read. She loved it and finally understood what it meant when her grandfather put the honey on the book. See all of the things that Tricia can accomplish now by reading. Thank you, Mr. Falker. The Butterfly. Monique was a young girl in occupied France during World War II. Her mother, Marcelle, was part of the French underground, which meant that she tried to help Jewish people get out of France safely without the Germans discovering them. Marcelle had been allowing a Jewish family to hide in her basement, but hadn't told her daughter. One night, Monique thought she saw a ghost in her room. The ghost was actually Servine, the daughter of that Jewish family. The two girls had a wonderful nighttime fantasy life. One night, They found a beautiful papillion butterfly, and when they released it into the air, Servine said it was like she and her family were flying away too. One night, the neighbors caught a glimpse of Servine. Marcel and her daughter Monique and a friendly priest helped the family escape to Switzerland. She wondered what became of her friend. Were they safe? Would she ever know? Read The Butterfly to find out. My brother and our mother and I lived with my grandparents on their farm in Union City, Michigan. Now my babushka, my grandmother, knew lots of things. She knew how to tell a good story, she knew how to make ordinary things magical, and she knew how to make the best chocolate cake in Michigan. After she told my brother and me a grand tale from her homeland, we'd always ask, "Bubby, is that true?" She'd answer, "Of course it's true, but it may not have happened," and then she'd laugh. I had an older brother named Richard, and he could do everything better than me. He could run the fastest, climb the highest, throw the farthest, sit the longest, get the dirtiest, burp the loudest, and spit the furthest. And he told me he would always be better than me. Or would he? Maybe Trisha finds something that she's finally better at than her brother Richard. Read my